So right now it's kind of mayhem. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. Did they explain to you why they're here?
They did not.
They said that there is someone here in Easterwood, someone who is a member of ICE, and he's a pastor of the church.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So this is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest.
There's a varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration. Recognize the complexity of the issue.
This shows you just how divided America is. When you look at the protesters here, and then you look at the people there who are praying, and you know what was the interesting thing? If these two groups could just get together, they might figure out what to do.
All right, that is video of the day that law enforcement and the feds now are focused on, as Don Lemon has been arrested as of late yesterday. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is going to be holding a press conference at 11 o'clock Eastern Time in Washington, D.C., on the arrest of Don Lemon and 3 others. We just saw, as we were bumping in here, another piece of video where Don Lemon says he's reporting on this story, covering this protest, Operation Pull-Up, as it was called, in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was, at that point, outside the city's church. That protest moved inside the city's church, where there's lots of video of Don Lemon interviewing people, including the pastor. This was January 18th. This was a week after the killing of Renee Good, and maybe about a week before the killing of Alex Preddy. And Don Lemon, of course, covering the protests of the ICE operations in the community, causing chaos, tremendous fear, breaking up families, and, of course, leading to the deaths of 2 U.S. citizens on the streets of Minneapolis. So these protests were very real, and the community was very tense and nervous and frightened. He live streamed all of his reporting, so that, of course, will be used in this trial by both sides, I would assume at this point. But once again, former CNN anchor Don Lemon arrested by federal authorities along with 3 others in connection to his coverage of protest. Jonathan Lemire.
And one of the others, a woman named Georgia Foote, also an independent journalist. So there are 2 journalists now arrested, coming on the heels of a raid of a Washington Post reporter's home just a few weeks ago. And Lisa, you know, we had a post from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, taking credit for this arrest, saying, at my direction, this was carried out. She said, more details soon. You have a little more as to when and how we may learn those details. What else are you finding as you're reviewing the documents here?
Well, I will tell you, Jonathan, that a source close to Don Lemon is telling MS Now that while we woke up to his arrest feeling a little bit surprised, he believed the government would try again. This was something that they were prepared for. They understood that after a judge rejected charges against Don Lemon and 5 others last week, and then the Department of Justice tried to compel the chief judge of the district to sort of reverse that decision, and they failed at that too. Don Lemon understood that the Department of Justice was undeterred, and so they were prepared for this moment, even though he was arrested late last night in Los Angeles as he was preparing to cover the Grammys this weekend. I can also tell you that Todd Blanche, as Mika noted, is holding a press conference this morning at 11 a.m. Our Laura Barone-Lopez will be in attendance at that press conference. We don't know for sure that the subject of that press conference are these arrests, but certainly based on the Attorney General's statement this morning, the sort of crowing by a Deputy White House Chief of Staff, James Blair, on X, it would seem that this is going to be the Department of Justice's opportunity to unveil the charges against Don Lemon and others and take what it seems like they believe is a victory lap in vindicating what they believe are the First Amendment rights at stake here. Yet again, we look at the video and we don't see any force or threatened force by Don Lemon, or for that matter, anybody else.
Laws about churches? What would you look at here as what potentially could give them grounds?
Well, the FACE Act, as we were discussing, which is fundamentally passed to protect access to abortion clinics and other reproductive health clinics, has a provision inside that also protects people against the use of force or threatened force in the exercise of their religious worship rights. And so it criminalizes somebody who by force or threatened force blocks access to or interferes with somebody's ability to religiously worship. It hasn't traditionally, Mika, been used for that purpose, but this is a Department of Justice who has been saying for months, we're not going to use the FACE Act to prosecute people who block abortion clinics. We are going to use it here.
You use the word force, so and luckily what journalists do when they're covering events live is they cover them live. On video, and they live stream what they're doing, and that's what Don Lemon did. So we'll be able to see what happened, just like in a lot of the other cases that are causing a lot of concern and fear and chaos across the country. There's lots of video of what happened. Independent journalist Georgia Fort posted a Facebook Live video detailing her arrest moments before she surrendered to federal officers at 6:30 a.m. this morning. Here's part of it.
You guys, I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. They're saying that they were able to go before a grand jury sometime, I guess, in the last 24 hours, and that they have a warrant for my arrest. I've talked to my attorney, and I'm being advised to go with them, I guess, down to Whipple.
Georgia Fort covering her own arrest, and she also posted.
Yeah, she posted. We're looking at it now, but it looks like she posted some Nest camera, like
her Ring camera.
Right.
All right.
The agents coming to the door.
Michelle Norris, I want to look at this. Molly brought up a great point. Look at this through the lens of First Amendment protections, especially for journalists. What's going on here?
Well, this is going to be the question, before the courts here. They were covering an event. It happened in a church, and that is a complicating factor that it happened in a church. And we just, need to say that. But, a judge that Molly mentioned, Patrick Schlitz, who was the judge that would not sign the warrant when this was first put before him. We should note, a very conservative judge. When this happened, Donald Trump had said that he was an activist judge, obviously didn't know his background. He is someone who clerked for Scalia, appointed by Bush, was the dean at the St. Thomas Law School in Minnesota, not someone that you would traditionally call an activist judge, and saw no merit in this case. So this is, they're both independent journalists. Georgia Fort, much less profile, lower profile than Don Lemon has. But this is clearly meant to send a message to journalists. But I think it's also an attempt to control the narrative. There are so many things that we aren't talking about because we're spending time talking about this. We're not talking about what's happening in Minnesota right now, where ICE agents are still roaming the streets and standing outside of schools and attempting to deport parents when they're dropping their kids off at schools. We're not talking about the general strike that was planned for the state. There are so many things that we're not talking about. And it's an interesting use of this video in particular, because it happens at a church, complicates the case in terms of trying to adjudicate this. But in terms of a potent message, particularly to their base, seeing this happen in a church, I think that they may be banking on the fact that people will look at this and say, I don't want this to happen in my sanctuary. That feels very uncomfortable to me. I don't like what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis, but I don't like that either. And I think it is a clear attempt to change the subject, but also to basically create a sort of new flank of battle in the war for public opinion. And those images may be particularly potent, not just to people on the right, but to anyone who enjoys the sanctity of the places where they worship. And I think they understand that, and that's why they've done this.
I think that you make a great point, especially on the political level. This is absolutely something that we can agree could be quite potent for them.